keep this short. Truefire sponsored this channel, and at the moment, for Black Friday, they're running their all access at an incredible discounted price of $79 for a full year of access to every single course. Go check it out.
Right, so I had a gig last night, a function gig. So I've done one gig with the stadium already, which was involving just a jazz guitar and a sax. So I thought it didn't really count hugely because it wasn't like I was doing any foot switching with that. What I was doing in that one, I left this out in the car and now it's covered in condensation. That's probably not good, is it? I'll put it by the dehumidifier in a minute. So yeah, I wanted to do this because it gave me a chance to actually put the stadium through its paces in a slightly different way and encounter a few things. So, you know, in terms of being careful what you wish for, there's just a few things that I think might be worth considering for some folks. In terms of, like, the stadium does some things that are kind of sort of firsts, but when you actually use them in the practical world, it might not be as useful as maybe I first thought. Anyway. Clips. I was using the Helix Stadium into a Fender FR12, so that's mostly what you're hearing for the stage volume. The way that I had it routed, left mono was going out to front of house, and then you can easily set one of these sends to go to a different output. So I was sending that to my Fender FR12, and then there was a plus 3 dB boost just going to the FR12. Now I find this is a relatively new idea for me, but if you're playing gigs with in-ears and you send like a substantial boost enough to get to the point where it's getting heard in the room, assuming that you don't have like an active sort of mixing situation going on, then it kind of ends up then pushing your in-ears to clipping, and it ends up being a bit impractical in that way. So the way that I've worked around this that I think actually works quite well is just to have a boost like above and beyond what you would do on here that goes to the Fender FR12, so that essentially you're getting like a big old jump up in terms of like filling the room sound without it kind of going straight into the in-ear mixes. I haven't been out to the front of house to hear how that worked in practice last night, but I did try it with my FM9 and that worked really well with that on one gig that I've tried that on. But more on that in some other stage. Now, okay, some of the things that are worth saying is that it's been pretty straightforward to set up. I do think it's about the best looking experience down on the floor. So it all makes sense. It's all very logical. If I press this one, I get another page of assignments. I've got my snapshots down here, and I've got my stomps up here. It's very, very straightforward. I like that it's a bit more compact than the Helix. In terms of being careful what you wish for here, I quite like a smaller unit, but when I was hitting this rhythm and this prize here, I would occasionally hit these other banks. So that's just a thing. I don't think it's much closer. It's like a ½ centimetre closer than the full Helix, or the older Helix. But if you've got big clompers or anything like that, you might find that these are just that little bit more close than the old Helix was. I don't remember that being an issue with the old Helix, but yeah, a couple of times I hit bank and then it sends you into this mode, which is kind of in the heat of battle was a little bit like, what do I do? But you can just press cancel and then jump to your snapshot. So that's one of the little kind of things that I thought. The other thing I think is that because I know that the boot time is a minute, if anyone gets near the Helix floor when you're on the stage, and particularly if you're on a smaller stage, this would be, I think, something to think about. You are a little bit aware that if that gets knocked out, you are going to be out of action for about a minute, which could be a little bit tricky in some scenarios, right? So that's one thing to watch out for, because if that happens during, you know, a specific part of a song, which, you know, as I say, a sound man was like, got on stage, Chris, and the singers had this light thing in his beard because it was like a sparkly party, and it fell out, and it was like bothering. So he got on stage to get rid of that, and I was like, don't stand on that, or it's what I was thinking in my head. Anyway, so there's that. Then here's another little bit of sort of practical stuff which I hadn't really considered. So Agoura is one of the first, if not the first thing where they put, basically, you've got multiple channels in an amp block. Now, that seemed like a good idea to me at the time, but how it actually ends up shaking out, I think probably some of you guys are not going to end up using necessarily the clean and the dry from a Soldano. Or for me personally, like if I stick a deluxe reverb in here, generally I'm going to be choosing the normal channel. I'm not using both channels, do you know what I mean? So it ends up being like a little bit of a thing where, because like Agoura amps are taking up more DSP anyway. If I know that I'm never going to use the vibrato channel, for instance, of a deluxe reverb or whatever the amp might be, then it might be more useful to be able to split that as well, so that I could just have the normal channel and not worry about the vibrato and save DSP in that way. I don't know if any of you feel the same way about that, but that's kind of one thing to consider. The main things that I was doing on the gig, so I actually added a bubble vibrato and a little bit of a deluxe compressor. All of that is super easy now that there's a touchscreen. My buddy Randy did say the other day, it kind of almost looks like they've got it to a stage now where the UI is so good that you're not really going to need the Stadium editor. And I do feel like that's pretty much where we're at with it, where it's so quick and good to use that you're golden with it. The main thing to be aware of, that I think once you get it to a gig, if you've not gigged it yet, is like maybe balancing volumes between stuff. So what I found was that I had kind of dialed it in with a Strat, and then I took a couple of guitars with humbuckers to the gig, and obviously then, because I'm using, basically for the clean tones, I'm using a deluxe reverb on like 2.8, so set very clean. Then for the drive tones, I'm using a deluxe reverb on like 10. So the headroom on the clean settings is much, much higher. So I have to like back that level off. And so I was gradually backing that off. Now, one little tip, if you're doing this live, whilst you're editing, press this little camera and set it to discard edits off. And then you won't have to be doing like a save every time you make a change to a snapshot. And then quickly, once you've done that, go back to put discard edits on. I didn't do that last night. I should have. It would have saved quite a bit of time. So what this discard edit things means is that preset, and you go to, say, the solo snapshot, and I did this last night quite a bit, and you go, right, I want to take like a little bit of a lighter approach to the start of the solo, and then kick that on halfway through. The next time you come to this snapshot, it will be with the assignments that you initially intended. Similarly, if you were, say, on a clean, you brought in a gain, a delay, a flanger, and on the second page, brought in a deluxe comp and a bubble vibrato and a vintage digital, then when you come back to it next time, or just press that again, you can re-trigger it to start your snapshot to back where it was. So do get familiar with that snapshot edit functionality, discard edits. So it's just that little camera that you're pressing. If it's red, that means you're kind of good for gigging. And if it's white, then what you'll find is that if you were to do that same thing that I just did, vintage digital deluxe comp and that, then basically those will stay on as you re-trigger the snapshot, and you kind of lose like a little bit of the essence of what that snapshot initially was going to be, because that's now altered, right? So is there a huge difference in tone when I'm playing on stage between these things? I did have compliments from the drummer on the tone of it, and he was like, yeah, that I've never really thought about this when playing with someone before, but your sounds are really on point, and I was like, really? So that was really nice to hear. In terms of like touch responsiveness, I think it's there. I'm also dialing things in a little bit different, so it's not necessarily like a totally fair comparator there, but I think what I did notice was, yeah, just it was very responsive to sort of your picking and aspects like that, particularly on like the edge of breakup type stuff. I think, or, you know, where if I was on my rhythm tone and I backed things off a bit, it was like, okay, well, I can hear there's a difference now. Let me just go through the preset a little bit. These are up in the Gumroad folder if you want to check out my Helix Stadium presets. This is going to be now slightly modified for the Les Paul, right? Oh, I would say as well, if you're thinking, do I need to buy the Helix Stadium floor thing, the bag, it fits fine in the old one, in the old bag, so I think you could probably save your money there. Like, it's quite a good sturdy bag, that old one, isn't it? Okay, so here's like the balancing act. So you want to take your like strumming and make sure that this is ending up being so like when you strum, what's quite good for me is that my clean amp is up here and my drive amp is down here, so I can kind of separate them and tweak them quite easily. So what I was saying is, got my clean, I can kick on gain, drive, that's dropping the volume a bit. Then some other effect that I just added on the gig. A dotted delay. What else have we got then? So and if I wanted to, I can have different shades of gain. As I say, this one here could go, for instance, out of XLR, and then this one here could go out of 1/4 inch. Then that's got a bit more of a boost. For the solo, but yeah, overall it's going to feel very familiar, I would say, to Helix owners. Obviously, it does feel like a bit of a quicker way to get around stuff. I think you might notice a bit of a difference as you're playing. You might end up building your presets slightly differently. The only issue really for me that I would say I wasn't expecting was that would end up getting hit. But I think at some point they have kind of hinted that this is going to do something slightly different. But would I gig it again? Absolutely. In terms of, because some of you might be thinking, like, what about compared to Fractal? I don't think there's anything there that necessarily blows the Fractal out of the water at all, except for ease of use. And then in terms of, like, as a piece of hardware, does it look as hard-wearing as an FM9? I guess is a question for some of you guys. But anyway, that's about all the amount of comparison that I want to do on that anyway. Cheers for stopping by. Catch you in another video soon. Cheers.